is there anything we could do beyond the testing to kind of get some clarity on whether or not there is mold? And symptoms are one thing, right? But are there places you could kind of look to get some idea if something has happened in the past or not?
Yes. Look in all the places around your house that we have water. A good example is the toilet tank. You can go to the toilet tank right after this episode when you're done listening, lift up the tank and look. Do you see black ring around the top? Do you see fuzzy stuff growing? Because that's a natural petri dish in our house. It's a dark, damp place where we have moisture, and every time you flush the toilet, pulls air in to displace that water. If there's any mold spores in the air, they're going to land around the rim and we're going to start growing mold. You can also look in the washing machine. You can look in your dishwasher disposal. You can open up the HVAC system and look on the coils. All of these places are places where we have water. It's dark, it's damp. It's a perfect place for mold. And if we get cheese and bread and fruit and it seems to just mold really fast, really easily, that's also an indication that we have an excess amount of spores floating through the air.
And remediation is one thing. It's expensive. It could, cost people a lot. Sometimes it's even done. I've seen where there's someone's remediated and they still have mold afterwards testing and it regrows in a sense. So there is no, silver bullet to getting rid of mold. But for preventive measures, you're talking about good things here because it is like, all right, toilet you could see. You don't have to rip up the whole house and start, addressing some mold behind sheetrock somewhere. And I do believe AC units are just the perfect area, right? Humidity, hot, cold, and no one really checks those areas. Should people be taking preventive measures such as just general cleaning of those areas with a specific solution?
Yeah, make that part of your quarterly cleaning to go into these areas that are not readily visible for the most cases and clean them. The HVAC system, you can put UV lights on the coils. That's going to really help to eliminate mold growth in that area and bacteria growth. So yeah, making sure we keep the house clean and doing regular maintenance goes a long ways when it comes to preventing mold.
And are there more natural solutions? Because a lot of people, when we were talking about cleaners, just bring in more chemicals that get in the air that kind of create a toxic environment as well. Because I know this, that if you're around a lot of chemical solvents, that could show up in your blood. We test patients all the time that are in the cleaning business or even, let's say, in the art business or something like that. And the fumes from everything get into the body, and then they have high lead levels because paint used to have a lot of lead. Are there natural solutions to kind of inhibiting mold and cleaning those areas?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of people, when it comes to mold, they just want to spray something on it and kill it. But we got to think about, let's times that up. If we were to zoom in, let's pretend like we had a bunch of weeds out in our yard. Would we want to go spray a bunch of chemicals on it, or would we want to go pick the weeds? The best option is to go out and actually physically remove the weeds. And that's how we want to treat mold as well. We want to look at it. If you open up the toilet tank and it's all fuzzy in there, you don't just spray a bunch of bleach and close it up. Let's take soap and water and clean it up really good and actually physically remove the mold spores. That's kind of how we want to think about this, is physical removal is the key.
Are things like ozone water and just ozone in the areas, that's something that's helpful?
Ozone is a very strong oxidizer, and it will denature the mold spore, the cell wall, and break it down. But unfortunately, ozone is very harmful to our lungs. And so we want to be very careful with ozone. And it can also oxidize and break down plastics and textiles in our home, can discolor the TV. So we don't want to really use too much oxidation as the answer. There's another gas called chlorine dioxide that works a little bit better. That's not as harmful. But ultimately, again, we want to come back to physical removal.